Hey, true believers. Chris Mack coming at you with part 27 of the Age of Apocalypse review. This is Weapon X number 3, and this is my second take on this review because I was getting halfway through it and I happened to look down and I was like, where's my mic? So it was just kind of like, oh no! So I had to start over. But such is life. Like I said with the Excalibur book, this was an equally fun and excellent comic book. And as I've said in past reviews, when I read this, I didn't know a whole lot of X-Men lore. So a lot of the characters that were introduced, I'd only heard rumblings of the names, but it didn't really mean anything to me. But yet, and the same thing with the writer and the artist, I really didn't know a whole lot about Larry Hama or Adam or Andy Kubert, the Kuberts. But I liked this issue just the way it opened, because I knew who Wolverine was. I didn't know a whole lot about his backstory at the time. But again, just the use of Hama's dialogue for the people talking, which is Mangle and Deadeye, which are part of the Reavers, but they're Apocalypse's Reavers, even though they're run by Donald Pierce. Instead of like, I have a target. Like, it better not be more livestock. No, it's a humanoid, and it's a mutant, alpha class. And as he's talking, we see the figure come closer and closer until this is how the issue introduces Wolverine, or Weapon X, in this book. So that is a great use of paneling right there. And just using the idea of like a sniper scope, great work. And so after we get treated with this, then we get a little, not full page splash, but just enough to just see Wolverine tear Deadeye apart. And you can just feel these onomatopoeias, as Logan's claws tear apart this Reaver. And at first I was like, wait, is that Cable? But no, obviously not Cable, but he has the look, you know what I mean? So great use of artwork. And the print date on this, I don't know if I said it or not, is May 1995. The story is called The Common Rights of Toads and Men. And the work is done here by Larry Hama writing, Adam Kubert penciling, Dan Green and Mike Sellers doing the inks, Pat Brossow doing the lettering, Joe Rosas doing the coloring, Digital Chameleon separations, and Bob Harris, editor-in-chief. So, and Wolverine was created by Len Wein. So I love this panel right here. And then what's cool is Mangle tries to get into the action to help his fallen comrade. And the paneling here is simple. And there's not an overuse of dialogue like a lot of modern books where they have like 6,000 text boxes covering the artwork. It just shows, Wolverine slices this guy. I guess I just ain't in the mood. Hands come down, jumps, takes his head off, lands, and then what Wolverine's saying here is how he's not in the mood for a snappy repertoire with some bozo who's traded in his humanity for a full body job in an electrolyte bath. And he's like, I didn't ask to be a mutant or the enhancements that were given to me by Weapon X. And so Logan figures that these people have already kind of started the road to killing themselves. And he goes, so I'm just finishing the job for him. And after he lands, just lights a smoke and walks away. So, simplicity, but effective. And that's always the best way, less is more. Show, don't tell. I know it sounds like little proverbs, but it really is good stuff to take to heart. Now, after this, we find out where Logan is, because they don't really give you an idea where you're at until you turn the page. And you just see this dead valley in the mountain. And Logan's like, Apocalypse must have known where people were coming, setting an ambush right at the gates of Wundagore Mountain. Now, before we go any further, we're going to jump over some stuff here that's kind of a spoiler. So if you don't want to be spoiled yet, but you want to know the significance of Wundagore Mountain, pause this review and go check out the review that we did on X-Men Chronicles #1, because that's where Wundagore Mountain in this universe is introduced and the significance of it. So now with that said, we're going to continue. And Wolverine says, it still takes my breath away. Even all devastated and abandoned like it is. I can remember the way it looked the first time I ever saw it. it looked like home. But I like that perspective shot where Logan's walking into the valley, and then you see the old school where Magneto first had the X-Men. He goes, that's what it became. That's what it became when old Eric Lenshier took me in and saved me from myself. I had some of the happiest moments of my life in this place. And some of the saddest. So we see R.I.P. Wanda Maximoff Lenshier, and you see Logan actually stop to pay his respects to his fallen comrade. So what's the significance of this? Check out X-Men Chronicles #1. Now, Logan's waiting for another ambush. He's like, smells something. And here, we see him launch into attack, and this woman's like, Logan, gotta be Carol Danvers. I don't know anyone else who smells like gold gun oil, C4, and Chanel #5. So, Carol Danvers, a.k.a. Captain Marvel. And this was back, for me, this is my opinion, let me know what you think, but from the 80s, during the Claremont era, to around the 90s to maybe the early 2000s, this was back when Carol Danvers was an interesting, full character. She had humor, she had flaws, she had hope, she had desires, and the rapport between her and Logan was always interesting. Like during Claremont's run, there was an arc where Rogue was struggling with having like a dual personality, where Carol Danvers would kind of take over, because that's how Rogue got her powers in the main universe, is she absorbed all of Carol Danvers' powers. So Carol's psyche would take over Rogue once in a while, and they'd have these missions with her and Logan, and it was just excellent the way it was executed. The way that they do Captain Marvel now, I mean, think about it. Look at how many #1s they've had to relaunch of Captain Marvel, and it's still not catching on because they're not looking at what writers in the past did to make her interesting. So anyway, with that, Carol brings Logan to Gateway. And as you can see, he is a far cry from the 616 version where he's always sitting out in the Australian outback just meditating. He looks more like a hippie here. And then here's one thing that kind of throws me in this as well, as Logan's not going to take any cred from, what do you call it, Gateway's catatonic state. And then all of a sudden, oh, it's you, Logan. Come give me a hand up. He speaks. I can't think of any other time that I've seen Gateway speak. So that was an interesting take. Now, before we kind of get any more with Carol and Gateway, did I and Mangle are able to kind of bring, put themselves back together Frankensteinish, and they want to come finish the job on Logan. So we get to see some really cool ways that Carol and Wolverine work together. And this is where, at the last issue, you thought that Donald Pierce was killed, but he's like, no, I'm harder to kill than you'd think. And Logan's just like, enhancements has its advantages. And he goes, sounds like your brain got a little well done. Because you thought he burned to death. And then he hits Pierce, and he's like, maybe it could benefit you from getting your brain sliced open to cool off. So the action, the way that they kind of start to build this together, is a real interesting idea. And then again, I really like the way Larry Hama used Carol Danvers in this book to show the kind of heart and metal and what kind of person she is, because it makes you care about her, as a good writer should. Each character that you introduce, you should either really root for them and, sort of, not empath, have empathy for them, or have a villain that you really hate, like Donald Pierce here, who you just want to see die, but it's not going to be so simple. That's what makes for conflict and good storytelling. So with that said, I want to stop it right here because I don't want to spoil anything else that happens in this book. But I will say, Weapon X number 3, just like with Excalibur, excellent read. And this was back, Larry Hama, Warren Ellis, all these big names working on these books, man. And it's just like, oh yeah, just great stuff. And that's why to this day, at this date, it's 2020. The Age of Apocalypse came out in 1995. X amount of years later, that's why this event still stands out amongst the crowd, because each writer that did the book took their time, fleshed out their characters, and just had fun while they were creating. As right now, event books now, they make no sense. It's just for money. I know I'm sounding a little bitter, but if you think about it, like for example, I don't remember which event it was I was looking at, but they gave you a read count and it was like 67 books. Who's going to buy 67 books? 20, kind of like the Age of Apocalypse, that's fine. Maybe 30, but 60 something, 70 something, come on. Let's stop it. Stop it. But anyway, I'd love to hear your thoughts on this book and just the Age of Apocalypse in general. So if you've enjoyed this book, please first and foremost support your local comic shop and see if you can pick up a copy. And if you've enjoyed this review, we really would appreciate if you take a moment to hit like and subscribe. And if you'd please share the video, helps the club more than you can possibly know. And if you won't mind hitting that fancy little Logan bell next to subscribe, that way as we continue to upload content, you guys get notified. Come to the channel, and we just love talking and hearing your feedback down in the comments below or on our social media pages, which I'll make sure to leave the links in the description below. So with all that said, thank you so much for stopping by. Hope you all continue to have an absolutely amazing day reading, and happy hunting, true believers.